iPhone 11 clues hidden in iOS 13, another iPhone feature on the chopping block, and the Mac Pro might have an official launch date. Let's get right to the core of this week's Apple news and rumors. With WWDC behind us, we're now uncovering hidden treasures in its new software updates. Now we know the big ones in iOS 13, dark mode, app refreshes, blah blah blah, but the devil is in the details, and Apple has sprinkled in some clues of what we can expect in the next iPhone. Case in point, the new recovery mode icon in the iOS 13 developers beta. Now at first glance, no big deal, right? But if you look closer, that is not a Lightning connector. That's a USB-C connector, and here's what it looks like next to the existing Lightning icon for comparison. The tip published in Forbes was first discovered by Apple enthusiast Raphael Mouton on Twitter. Last year's iPad Pros made the leap to USB-C, so it wouldn't come as that big of a shock to do it on the iPhones. Plus, we'd heard a lot of rumors that Apple could be doing it on the iPhone's 11. But it was definitely still hearsay. Once Apple decides to include it on an iOS update though, it's game on. Now there is a caveat though, as some Twitter users pointed out, which is that it may refer to the USB-C end of a USB-C to Lightning cable going into the Mac. Which, hey, at least would mean that Apple might be planning to include this type of fast charging cable in the box. So here's where you chime in. What do you guys think? Do you think the iPhone 11 is making the switch from Lightning to USB-C port, or do you think this is the USB-C to Lightning cable? And which one would you rather? Leave your answers on the comment section below or tweet me and we'll compare notes next week. But either one of these changes could come at a price. The rumors about Apple getting rid of 3D Touch in 2019 are gaining steam. We first heard about it back in January with a Wall Street Journal report, and now Barclay analysts cited in Mac Rumors have all but confirmed it after a visit with Apple suppliers in Asia. Apple first introduced this pressure-sensitive feature in the iPhone 6s, and it was supposed to help with navigation once the home button got removed in the iPhone 10, but since then it hasn't proved as necessary as maybe Apple had thought. The best example of this is the iPhone XR. Apple had to replace 3D Touch in this phone with something they called haptic touch, which is basically their fancy way of saying a long press with a slight vibration. This to make room for that nearly edge-to-edge display. So it doesn't work exactly like 3D Touch because you can't do certain things like quick action app menus or peek and pop for previewing content, but it kind of does the same thing. At least that's what I thought, and I for one didn't think I would miss 3D Touch until I read your comments. In my informal Twitter poll, more than 2/3 of you said that you do use this feature and that you'd probably miss it if it was gone. I actually learned or discovered some new ways to use it by reading your answers. Patrick Talon said he uses it for quick replies and actions for apps that take advantage of it. Most used for approvals for Okta and two-factor authentications, which I'd actually forgotten I use as well. Steve Boyer says he uses it to quickly connect to AirPods from the control center, 3D press on the audio control box. This one I would miss. I use it many times per day, he says. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have Chris Lester, who says, I keep forgetting it's there and I can't get into the habit of using it. And while I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know whether or not we're going to lose it for certain, what I do know is that the functionality will remain, at least to some degree, whether haptic touch or otherwise, because the iOS 13 beta has even more use cases for it, primarily on the control center as pointed out in Mac Rumors. You can now 3D touch or long press to switch Wi-Fi networks or Bluetooth devices. So why would Apple keep it in its new iOS beta if it's not going to have it on the next iPhone? There is nothing I love more than when a company accidentally leaks stuff, whether it's in the software code or in their own website, and Apple may have done just that this week with the Mac Pro launch date. When they announced it at WWDC, the company said it would be available this fall, which still holds true, but bear with me. If you ask to be notified of its release on the Apple.com website, you'll have plenty of reminders that it is still coming this fall. Same if you go to the actual product page for both the Mac Pro or the 6K monitor. But for a brief moment in time, if you hit that notify me button from the product collage on that homepage, the sign read, coming in September. We reached out to Apple for comment and they still haven't said anything about the official release date, and it has since been corrected on the home page. But it may be too late because the slip was already documented in 9to5Mac and Mac Rumors, and by now, as you can probably guess, it's all over the internet. So you can bet that my money is on a September release date, maybe alongside those new iPhones. That does it for our show today, but make sure to send in your comments about the USB-C port on the next iPhone because we're going to be discussing that next week. So come back to CNET.com and YouTube for more Apple Core.